Hi everyone, my name's Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and I'm here today with my ultimate Christmas gift guide. Book gift guide, I should say. And today we are playing 4 games. We're playing 1, can I film this video before my daughter wakes up from her nap? 2, can you hear me over the storm raging outside? 3, can I do this in 1 take or as few takes as possible, because I want to minimize editing together lots of clips and maximize the amount of time I have to insert pictures of all the books I'm going to talk about, because I think there are hundreds. And what's the 4th one? Oh, the 4th one is, can I read my own handwriting? Because I have made notes for myself and my handwriting is questionable. So those are all the games that we're going to play together. Let me find my note here at the beginning of my notes. So over on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, I asked you for your bookish gift conundrums. So for instance, Jen, I want a book for my mum. She likes these things. What would you recommend? And I think I've written down about 50 of those requests, and I have worked really hard this week thinking of ideas for you all, and I'm going to answer them now. If this happens to be helpful for you at all and you feel that you would like to throw $1 or £1 in the tip jar over on Patreon, that would be very much appreciated. I worked really hard on this video. And also, if you want to throw $2 in the tip jar, that will give you access to all the Vlogmas videos that I'm doing over on Patreon at the moment. I'm uploading every day from the 1st to the 24th of December, just a short video, about 10 minutes every day, chatting with you, a bit like an advent calendar, answering questions. So link to that will be in the description box down below. But we have lots of books to talk about. So let me just pick up my notebook that I just dropped. Let us dive into the book conundrums and also the answers that I came up with. So number 1, Jen, my dad loves nonfiction, especially about textiles. I would recommend, let me scoot over here so I can insert covers here, Secrets of Colour by Kezia Sinclair, which is about the history of different colours, dyes, textiles. I think it's really interesting. 2, Jen, my mum loves nature and cozy vibes. Has she read Names for the Sea, Strangers in Iceland by Sarah Moss? This is like my ultimate cozy non-fiction book, and I can't even really explain why, it just is. It's about Sarah, who is an author. If you haven't read her fiction, recommend that too. This is a non-fiction book about her moving to Iceland with her family and living there for a couple of years, and like just all the different things that she experienced there, different food and her exploration of Iceland, and it's great. I can't recommend this one because I haven't read it, but I have it on my shelf and I'm looking forward to reading it, and that is Spring Tides by, oh, this is where I have to try and read my own writing, Fiona someone. You will see it on the cover here. And this is about exploring marine life on the Isle of Man. And that sounds like cozy nature vibes as well. Jen, I need a gift for a 30-year-old man who wants to get back into reading. Recently, he liked Greenwood by Michael Christie. I haven't read Greenwood, but I looked it up and it gave me vibes of Richard Powers. That may be a really obvious answer, but The Overstory by Richard Powers, which is about the connection between trees. If that one is too obvious, then maybe something like Lanny by Max Porter, which is about a family in a commuter town near London, but about the youngest son's relationship with art and nature, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. I love that one. Also The Yield by Tara June Winch, which is about ancestral land and reclaiming ancestral land. Then we have, Jen, I want a recommendation for a 7-year-old boy who is a reluctant reader, please. So this is not a book specific recommendation, but a publisher recommendation, and that is Barrington Stoke. They publish books for young readers, and they're all dyslexia friendly, and if he is a reluctant reader, then that might be a really good place to go to. So have a look at their website. I'll link it in the description box down below. Read through some of the blurbs and see what topics appeal to the person that you would like to buy for. Dear Jen, I need a book for someone who's feeling a lot of the weight of the world and needs something cozy and nurturing. So when I think of cozy and nurturing, I think of food. So I have to say Tiny Moons by Nina Mingy Powell, which is about a year of what she ate in is that the sentence? It's about what she ate over a year in Shanghai, and I absolutely love it. It's just a little book, really lovely. One that is on my TBR is Moving Mountains, which is an anthology of nature writing by disabled writers, and I just think that that is going to be really, really lovely, and maybe something that you want to go to. And also a book that I bought for myself a month or so ago is The Grand Hotel of Feelings. Is this a picture book primarily aimed for children? Probably, but I absolutely love it. It's about someone who runs a hotel and she hosts feelings. So they come to stay, and it's about how she looks after them, how she looks after anger and sadness. And it is the most wholesome, rejuvenating thing. So if this person is anxious and they need to not be, I think this will help with that. I know it does because it helped with me. Jen, I would love a book recommendation dealing with grief and change. Playing Games by Huma Qureshi, I would say the main subject matter isn't grief, but grief kind of hovers on the periphery all the time. It's about the relationship between two sisters and how they've drifted apart a bit, I think after the death of their mum, if I am remembering that correctly. It is also about IVF as well, so if that's not something that you want to touch on, then maybe don't go for that one. Only a little bit. That's not the main topic of the book either. But if you want something that is dealing more directly with grief, then I would recommend Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer, which was longlisted for the Booker Prize a couple of years ago. And it almost feels like a prequel to Grief is a Thing with Feathers by Max Porter, which is another brilliant book about grief, in that in Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies, the main character has been told that she has terminal cancer, and it's about her and her family dealing with that. So it's about anticipatory grief, and cancer has a voice in the book as well. As I described that sounds really depressing and awful. It obviously is extremely sad, but that's not the main takeaway that I took from this book. So I just thought it was really beautiful and really angry, and I thought it was very realistic as well, even though cancer has a voice in the book and that's not a very realistic thing. Anyway, I love that one. Jen, my aunt likes puzzles, doesn't like fantasy, isn't into regular detective fiction. Okay, so I would recommend books by Claudia Pinheiro, who's an Argentinian author, and she writes crime, but literary crime. In fact, some of her books don't even feel like crime fiction, kind of on the cusp of. One in particular would be Eleanor Knows, which is about a woman who is thinking about the death of her daughter, and she thinks there's a crime to be investigated. She thinks that she didn't die by suicide, which is what everybody else is saying, and it's about a day in her life as she investigates this. But really it's about how she has Parkinson's, and it's about her living with that, and we explore the day with her through crib time. And that was what I loved about the book primarily, is about how it discussed disability, because I thought it was brilliant. I would also recommend her book A Little Luck, which is about a woman who goes back to her hometown. You know that something terrible has happened there in the past, and over the course of the book you slowly find out what that is. It's really tense, and I wouldn't describe that one as crime either, but it does have that mystery element to it. Before I get on to the next one, a quick pause to thank the sponsor of today's video, Serious Readers. If you've been around here a while, you know the drill. For the past 3 years, I have been working with Serious Readers because I love what they do. They make reading lights. This is one of them behind me. This is one of their high definition lights. It's a floor light. It's adjustable. You can get it cordless or wired. Mine's wired, but still super easy to move around. And it is a game changer when it comes to reading, especially if you have any kind of complications with your eyes. So I have very dry eyes and scratched corneas, and this is incredible because they have invented something called daylight wavelength technology, which mimics daylight as much as is possible. In fact, their lights are so good, let me get this right, that they are in submarines and also spaceships. So they have been deep into the ocean, and I think as far into space as any human has been, which is just pretty incredible. I think that kind of, says a lot about the quality of their lights. I use this every single day. It is just wonderful. As I said, they sent me the light 3 years ago and asked if I'd like to work with them, if I like the light, and I absolutely love it. So if you are in the market for a new reading light, they have given me a code to offer to you, which is Jen24. There's a link in the description box down below, and that code gets you £100 off a high definition light and free UK delivery as well. They are a small UK based company. They make all of their lights here, and they're just wonderful people to work with, and I have a soft spot for them in my heart. And thank you very much to them for sponsoring this video and my channel in general. And yes, back to the Christmas gift guide. Jen, I am looking for unusual board books for my 10-month-old. They love Nosy Crow, Lift the Flap, and Peekaboo books. Hates sound. Okay, so I feel you because my daughter is 9 months old and she absolutely loves books. So we have our Christmas tree up behind us, and then I have like basically a barricade of boxes of books which stop her getting to the Christmas tree because books are more interesting to her than the Christmas tree. And she has a lot of books. Our local library closed a while ago, which I was really sad about, and I hope that it opens again when she gets a bit older, because I loved going to the library when I was young. But it's quite difficult finding really good narrative driven board books in the UK. We have lots of them, but they're the classic ones you would expect. So things like Peepo, we have the Spot books, we have the Alberg books, we have Jill Murphy. I mean, they're all like behind me in this box here. We have the Rod Campbells, you know, the things that I read when I was little that are still knocking around. Board books are expensive to produce. If you don't know what board books are, they're the ones that look like this. So they're really thick. They often have flaps in them. They're very durable, so they're very expensive to print. Publishers don't like taking punts on new board books because the risk of it not paying off is much bigger. Our picture book scene in the UK is brilliant. Our board book scene is good but could be better. So when I've been looking for out of the ordinary, have exhausted our local bookshop, trust me, board books, I have looked to US and Australian imports. I don't know where you're based. Maybe you could look for UK imports if you are not based in the UK, but this is what I have been doing. But let me tell you quickly what some of her favourite ones are in case these are of interest to you. So this is At the Park. This is part of the Little Days Out series, so that there are other ones. I imagine there is a winter one if you would like to get a winter one. This is an autumn based one, but it's just very, very beautiful. Quite sturdy flaps, just about going to the park with a picnic with Granny. My favourite Eric Carle is an obvious recommendation. The Hungry Caterpillar, The Very Busy Spider, The Lonely Firefly. But there are more obscure Eric Carles. You'll have to excuse me if these are not obscure in the States, but they're difficult to find here. I had to buy them online. So there is Panda Bear, What Do You See? And this is about creatures that are endangered. And the illustrations inside are just beautiful, and it's very repetitive, and there's a song to go with it if you want to look that up. My favourite Eric Carle though is this one, which is 10 Little Rubber Ducks Who Get Lost in the Sea and what happens to them. So the first little rubber duck drifts west and a dolphin jumps over it. A second little rubber duck drifts east and a seal barks at it. The third one goes north and a polar bear growls at it. The fourth goes south and a flamingo stares at it. It's just really lovely and all about directions. So that one is great. My favourite, Sandra Boynton, which is very popular in the States but not so in the UK, is Hippos Go Berserk. Very silly, fun rhyme. Those ones are not Lift the Flap books. This one is also not Lift the Flap, but I'm still going to mention it because she loves it, and that is If I Had an Octopus by Gabby Dornay, illustrated by Alex Barrow. This is part of a series, and this is her favourite from the series. In fact, this was the first book she picked at a bookshop when we went to one. And a book with flaps that is her favourite, but you need two people, I would say, to read this one, because it is quite delicate. So one holding the baby and one to read the book. This is Mouse's Wood, which I've recommended before, but it's a book of the seasons, and it's just gorgeous with these wonderful, wonderful flaps, and you can see into the homes of all the animals in the woods. What we are doing, I'll finish this question soon, don't worry, but I'm invested in it. What we are doing this year, we thought, what could we get our daughter for Christmas? Because she's only 9 months old. We decided that we would do a 12 Days of Christmas book box. So I have bought 12 board books, and I'm going to wrap them up separately and put them in a box. And then every day from Christmas Day until the 6th of January, she will pick out a book and she can open it, we can read it, then she keeps it forever. I may be starting a thing where come the 7th of January, she's like, wait, where's my new book? Do I not get one every day? Is that not what's happening? But I will tell you some of the books that I have bought that are going in that box in case that happens to be of interest. I will insert them on the screen. I have bought My Cat Likes to Hide in Boxes, Peck, 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 Rosie's Walk, Orange Pear, Apple Bear, Press Here, Tree, which is, I don't know if this is a lift the flap, but I think it's got cutouts in it, and it's about trees through the seasons, and it looks really beautiful. If I Had a Dinosaur, which is part of the If I Had a series, it's in fact the original one. Time for Bed by Mem Fox. And Maurice Sendak books are difficult to get here, not the obvious ones like Where the Wild Things Are. But I bought a board book of Chicken Soup with Rice, which I've actually never read before, but lots of people have said that that's good, so I hope that that is true. Another Linley Dodd called The Nickel Knackle Tree, which I had to get as an Australian import. She is the author of Harry McClary, which our daughter really loves, and then Everywhere Babies, which seems to be really lovely as well, and was a recommendation from my editor because her kids love that. So that's my answer. Very long answer to that question. I hope that was helpful to you, and Merry Christmas to you and your little one. Okay. Where are we going next? Jen, I need a recommendation for my boyfriend. He is 43, likes science fiction, history, dinosaurs, Scotland, and space. This does not combine all of those things, but Stowaway to Mars by John Wyndham is a book I read recently and is a lot of fun. It's old school sci-fi about the space race, but before the space race happened, and about countries trying to get to Mars as quickly as possible, and I just had a great time. 13, a cozy historical fiction book for my mum. I'm going to assume that if she likes cozy historical fiction, she probably is already familiar with Tracy Chevalier, but if not, I would recommend her book Remarkable Creatures, which is about the fossil collector Mary Anning. Or, if she has read all her books, Tracy Chevalier has a new one that just came out called The Glassmaker, so head to that one. Jen, my dad is hard to shop for. He only reads Jeffrey Archer and Middle Eastern fiction. For people who are hard to buy for, I always recommend Ed Brooke Hitchings' books because I think they have such general appeal, which is very difficult to have. So his most recent one is called The Most Interesting Book in the World. This is it here. Ed used to be, or maybe still is actually, I don't know. He used to be an elf on QI, so he knows all of the facts, like all of them, and all his books are just brilliant. So go and check out his backlist. Jen, for my sister who is 30, I need a standalone thriller, horror or crime, great if in translation. Paradise Rock by Jenny Haval is a Norwegian book in translation. I don't have it to hand, so I'm afraid I can't remember the name of the translator. I'm sorry. But this is kind of creepy, get under your skin, verging on horror, but not really, about a university student and the weird relationship she has with her housemate, and how like everything feels like very moist and clawing. It's like their home is growing mushrooms, and it's just it makes you feel deeply uncomfortable. And I'd also recommend All Yours by Claudia Pinheiro, which is an author I mentioned before, an Argentinian author. Her work is translated. I want to say Frances Riddell, but I'm not sure that this one is actually, because this is one of her backlist titles, and it is more of a crime book in the vein of Patricia Highsmith, about a woman who sees her husband murdering his mistress, and then she decides to help clean up the crime without ever telling him that she's doing it. Jen, I would like a book for someone who is into translated Korean and Japanese fiction and romance. So Spring Garden by Tomoko Shibasaki has this romantic feel to it. It's about a man who's in an apartment block, and the apartment block's about to be shut down, and it's just full of nostalgia. And it's about the gap between what was real and our memory of those things, and exploring those themes. I thought it was quite beautiful. I'd also recommend the book Strangers, which is very different to the film that recently came out with, oh my goodness, who is in that film? You know, and you're shouting at me. Andrew Scott. Yes. Very different because it's not queer. The book is not queer, which is a shame. But I still enjoyed reading the book. And it's about a man who suddenly runs into people his own age who look like his parents. And he thinks that maybe they are the ghosts of his parents and they hang out with him. There's also a bit of a relationship in it. But again, the romance is more the atmosphere of the entire book. Jen, I need something for my mum, who is scared of literary fiction but likes a gentle family drama. All the Little Bird Hearts by Victoria Lloyd Barlow is a brilliant book about a woman called Sunday Forrester who is autistic, and she's living with her daughter who's 18, about to leave home, and a new neighbour moves in and she makes friends with this neighbour, and it's about the drama that ensues from that. Jen, I need a book for my 3-year-old nephew whose dad is currently in a tirade about boys not wearing pink. Okay, well, I would recommend the book Fabulous Frankie by Simon James Green, which is about a flamingo called Frankie who's worried that he's not fabulous enough because all of the flamingos are fabulous. And it is just the most joyful book. Please gift that. Jen, I need a book for my partner who loved The Offing by Benjamin Myers. It's been a long time since I read it, but I think The Lighthouse by Alison Moore, because if I remember, there are coastal walks in that as well. So yes, maybe go to that one. Jen, I'm looking for a book for my sister who likes quite dark books, female authors, books about families. Her favourite author is Eleanor Ferrante. So my favourite books about families, we've got A Place for Us by Fatemeh Farheen Mirza, which is about 5 members of an American Indian Muslim family over the course of 20 years. It's not told in a linear way, and it made me sob. It was absolutely gorgeous. Transcendental Kingdom by Yarjassi is about a brother-sister-mother relationship. It's also about science, religion and drugs. And then Memphis by Tara Springfellow is again a generational novel, mainly focused on the women in a family. And that one is the most beautiful writing because Tara is a poet as well. Jen, I need a book for my friend who loves police procedurals and female leads. The first book in the Kristen Lipionka crime series. Is it The Last Place You Look? That might be the first one. If it's not, I will insert the cover of the first one here. But that is a great queer detective series. And I still need to read the last one in that series, actually. Or Red Room by Nikki French, which is one of their standalones. And it's about a woman called Kit, who is a psychoanalyst, I think. And the novel opens with her being attacked by someone who's been brought into a police station, which gives her a facial disfigurement, and then it's about her dealing with that, which I think is dealt with very well, and then her solving a crime with the police later on. I found it very gripping. Jen, I have a friend who is obsessed with Pokemon and the idea of tameable creatures. Ideas? Mothkeeper or Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill is a beautiful graphic novel about the relationship between animals and people, but also Strange Beasts of China by Yan Gi, which is translated from the Chinese by Jeremy Tiang, which is about a journalist / cryptozoologist living in China, and there are rumours of mythological creatures taking over the city, and each chapter is about them finding one of those creatures and examining them and talking about them, and it's brilliant. Jen, I need a book about working women during war or a Great Depression, female friendship and a happy ending. So I would recommend the When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit trilogy, the second of which is called Bombs on Aunt Datey, which is about Anna, who's based on Judith Carr, living in London during the Blitz and working. I would also recommend A Single Thread by Tracy Chevalier, which is about the interwar years following one woman who is trying to work out what she wants to do with her life. And that one is great too. Hi Jen, I'm looking for a book with lesbian and weird atmosphere like Julia Armfield. Have you read Eva Balthazar's work? The first book in her trilogy, Loose Trilogy, you don't have to read them all, they're just thematically similar, is Permafrost. So look that up, read the blurb, see if it appeals. Jen, I need a gift for my mum who loves Persephone, gardening, can't read my writing, and climate, eco issues. There we got there in the end. There was a BIPOC nature anthology that came out earlier this year, the title of which currently escapes me. I will also put that on the screen. And there is a book by Lula Ellender called, oh my goodness, I didn't write this down. Let me grab my computer and I can tell you, because I feel like that is important. Hold please. Lula Ellender, she wrote a book called Grounding. That was it. I would recommend that. It's about losing her mum and about her mum's love of gardening and about how she wants to continue gardening because of her. And then the nature book was Gathering, Women of Colour on Nature. So check out those ones and see if you think your mum would like any or all. It depends on how generous you are feeling. Jen, I need a non-fiction book about something strange. I don't really know what you mean by strange, but if you mean something very oddly specific, then I would recommend Below the Edge of Darkness by Edith Widder, which is about studying the bottom of the ocean, or near the bottom of the ocean, and the lack of light down there, but also talking about sight loss because the author was experiencing sight loss at the time. And also In the Province of the Gods by Kenny Fries, which is about disability and queerness in Japan. Kenny is, I want to say Canadian, from North America anyway, and travelled to Japan as a disabled gay man and was talking about those things. Jen, what book, not technical, would you recommend for someone who is pregnant, who loves reading? Maybe some T.M. Logan books. I really enjoyed those when I was pregnant. They are fast-paced crime thrillers. My favourite is The Curfew. Jen, I need a great book, literary but readable, published this year. How about Enter Ghost by Isabella Hamad, which is about a woman who travels back to Palestine from London after splitting up with her partner and ends up putting on a production of Hamlet in Arabic. And some of it is told in script form, and I just thought it was experimental but still very easy to read. Jen, I want a great poetry collection for someone who likes poetry but doesn't read it all the time. I'd recommend the Forward Anthologies. I always recommend these. They bring out a new one every year. The 2025 one just came out, which is highlighting some of the commended, shortlisted, and obviously winner poems from this year's Forward Prize. So that one definitely. Jen, I need a gift for someone who likes apocalyptic fiction like Station 11. Sealed by Naomi Booth, but do not buy it for them if they are pregnant. I read it when I was pregnant. I had regrets. It is about a woman who is 8 months pregnant in the apocalypse, but the stress, very stressful, but also stressful because it's really well written. It's about a disease that people get where their bodies close up so their mouths are sealed shut. It just makes me want to throw up thinking about it. Their ears and their eyes so they just can't breathe. Oh my goodness. Okay, if that appeals to you, then go for it. But it is very, very good. Jen, I want setting-based fiction like Crawdads or Paper Palace for a work friend. Wolf Border by Sarah Hall, I would say, is very evocative of place. It's set in the Lake District. It's about a woman who works with wolves and has been hired from America to come to the Lake District to help bring wolves back into the wild in England. Jen, I need a book for an 11-year-old girl who likes adventure books. Anna James recently brought out the first book in a new series. She's the author of Pages & Co. This new one is called The Chronicles of Weatherwhy, and it contains seasonal magic. And I am so excited to read that one. And I've heard brilliant things, so I would go for that. Jen, I need a queer love story with sport and nature themes. Bonus if it's set in Scotland. Okay, so I had some weird recommendations for this, I think, because that's quite a mixture of stuff. If anyone else has recommendations for this, please do put it in the comments section. But I want to recommend English Animals by Laura Kay. That's obviously not set in Scotland, it's set in England, so I don't get the bonus point for that one. But it is a queer, it is queer-ish love, lust story set in England, definitely nature based. And sport, is taxidermy a sport? Probably not. I'm pushing that, I think, but I would recommend that. And then for a book that's set in Scotland that is queer in all kinds of ways, including the obvious queer, is Freak's Law by Jane Flett, which is a book that I did a authenticity read for last year because it's about a freak show. And it is a wild ride, so maybe Google that one and see if you like the look of it. Jen, I'm looking for a book for a witchy friend. She likes acting, film and theatre, and quirkiness in general. Children of Paradise by Camilla Gradova, which is about a woman called, I want to say Holly. It's been a couple of years. I think her name is Holly. Apologies if it's not. Who goes to work in an independent cinema, and the people who work there are all very cliquey, and they watch films and take drugs together, and then everything gets very blurry and you're not sure where the films end and their lives begin, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Jen, I want a soft and magical book with little to no romance for an ace person, please. Have you read Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yee? I have a real soft spot for that. It is a middle grade graphic novel, but I enjoyed it very much as an adult. Jen, I'm in my gothic horror era and would like some recommendations. No Angela Carter, please. Okay, how about The Wilds by Julia Elliott, which is Southern Gothic, or The Book Collector by Alice Thompson, which is about a man who seems to do away with his wives, very inspired by Jane Eyre, has fairy tale references, or Where the Wild Ladies Are by Matsuko Ayoko, which is a collection of Japanese feminist ghost stories. You're welcome. Jen, Something with short chapters that will really be compelling, because I need to read it on the bus to work. About family. How about The Therapist by Niall Giacomelli? It is about family, primarily a couple, but talking about families in general. It's part of the Fairlight Modern series, so it's actually very small and will fit into a pocket. I can't remember if the chapters are short, but I remember racing through it and it being very compact. It is about a pandemic, but like a magical pandemic where people start disappearing. Jen, I need a book for my brother-in-law who's into music and meditation. How about Listen by Michel Faber, which is a non-fiction book. He writes fiction. You're probably familiar with that. But this is about answering 2 questions: how we listen to music and why we listen to music. Jen, I need a book for my sister who loves contemporary literary fiction, in-depth characters and plot, and books as depressing as hell. How about Brotherless Night by Vivi Ganeshanathan, which won the Women's Prize this year? I found that book very depressing, but also brilliant in its scope. So yes, but that might be quite an obvious one because it won the Women's Prize. So how about The Echoes by Evie Wilde? That came out this summer, and I feel like I haven't seen people talk about it as much as her last book, The Bass Rock. Admittedly, I loved her book, The Bass Rock, more, and I think would also be a good answer to this question. But The Echoes is about a couple called Anna and Max, and it begins with Max dying or realizing that he is dead. The first sentence is something like, "I didn't believe in ghosts until I was one." And you would think that's a really questionable premise for a book, but actually it works really well, and it's both funny but also really horrifying. The book itself deals with a lot of very complex family issues, and I would maybe look up trigger warnings for it before you purchase it as well. Jen, I would like a recommendation for fiction books that focus on food. The protagonist is in food industry, books that have food descriptions. So I mentioned before Nina Mingyapal's book, Tiny Moons, which is a non-fiction book. But if you would like a novel, then I've heard great things about Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang, which I really want to read, and I have it on my shelf. It's a dystopian book, but about a chef, I think, and about food. And then I read this year Butter by Asoko Yuzuki, which is about a woman who's a journalist who goes to interview a chef in prison who has been accused of murdering her lovers, who she lured into her life with food. I didn't think it was a perfect book. I thought thematically the ending was just, it unraveled a little bit, but I'm still thinking about it, and the food descriptions were sublime. Jen, I am looking for a gift for me. I loved Bay Suar's Untold Night and Day. So this one is not a specific book recommendation, but a publisher again. Are you familiar with Strangers Press? They are a small press based in Norwich. They publish series of pamphlets in translation. They have a collection of Korean pamphlets in translation, and that's how I actually discovered Bae Suar to begin with, because one of her books was part of that series. So go check out their website. If you have looked at their Korean set before, they recently just brought out one from Taiwan, so maybe that's one you want to check out. Jen, my husband doesn't read much, but recently read 1984 and loved it. I already have Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World ready to go. How about Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham? So again, historical dystopian books. This is about a village where all the women suddenly fall pregnant and they don't know why that's happened, and I don't really want to say more than that, but it is creepy as hell. Maybe also the Hopkins manuscript by R.C. Sheriff, which was written at a similar-ish time and is about the moon being about to collide with the earth, and it's just an ordinary guy who's in a local village writing about them anticipating that and how he feels about it. Jen, I'd love a book for my mum set in Chile. I was trying to think about books set in Chile, and I'm sure that I have read some, but I was drawing a blank, so I want to recommend Charco Press, who publish books from South America, and I had a look on their website, and 2 of their books in particular sounded brilliant, which is Chilco by Daniela Catrillo, which is translated by Jacob Edelstein, and then, I can't read what I have written. Never Did the Fire by Diamela Elliott, translated by Daniel Hahn. Both of these books sounded great. Go and check them out if you are not familiar with them. In fact, should I give you a taste of the blurb? Because it seems a bit rude to just say, go and find it yourself. Let's look them up. Okay, so Chilco, a novel. Oh, it says it's a novella, so I guess this one is short. Oh, this blurb is in Spanish. Let me find the blurb that is not in Spanish. Okay, Chilco is the name of Pascal's home island. It is also the word for fuchsia, a word that evokes tropical lushness, wetness, the deep greenness of the forest. Pascal's partner Marina grew up in the vertical slums of Capital City, a place scarred by centuries of colonialism and now the ravages of feckless developers. Every day the two women fear a sinkhole will open up and take with it another poor neighbourhood, another raft of desperate refugees from the hinterlands, the indigenous, the poor, who are toiling for an all-consuming machine that is devouring the earth from beneath their feet. So that is that one. And what was the other one called? The other one was called Never Did the Fire. Hold up together, old, ill, and untethered from the revolutionary action that defined them, a couple's bonds dissolve in their loss of a child and their loss of belief in an idea. What is there left to have faith in when the structures we build and the ones we succumb to no longer offer us any comfort or prospect of salvation? So that is that one. Next. Jen, I need a book for my sister, Gripping and Beautiful but Not Creepy, Pachinko Parlor by Eliza Shua Dussapin, which is translated from the French by Anissa Abbas Higgins. I read that earlier this year, can't stop thinking about it, hauntingly beautiful but not at all creepy. It's about a woman called Claire, who I think is from Switzerland, but goes to live with her Korean grandparents in Japan and is teaching... She's teaching Japanese, or maybe she's teaching French. She's teaching a language to a student as work while she's there. And the way the weather is talked about is just wonderful. And there's something very ethereal about the whole thing. I loved it. Jen, recommend a book for someone who loves Persephone books. So a Persephone book that I love is Doreen by Barbara Noble, which is about a young girl who is evacuated during the Second World War. Another book by Barbara Noble, which is not published by Persephone, is The House Opposite, which is about the Blitz. And I'm not a huge fan of reading books about the Blitz because there are so many of them, but I make an exception for Barbara Noble and for Judith Kerr because they're writing about their own experience or books based on their experience of living through the Blitz. And I would like to read about that. So The House Opposite is about a woman called Elizabeth who's having an affair with her boss, and the Blitz is going on around them, and it's about them breaking curfew and disregarding rules, and based on what people were doing at that time. And it also has a queer element to it as well. Jen, I would like a book with a dysfunctional family, queer history, and spooky old homes. Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. It's a book that has all of those things, but I imagine maybe you have read it if those are the themes that you are asking for, because it's a bit too perfect. So I will also recommend another Persephone book, which is Still Missing by Beth Gutcheon, which is one of their more recent books, as in it was published in the 80s. It's not that historical, but it's about a young boy who goes missing and about the aftermath of that in the family. And there is a queer element to it as well, though it does not have a spooky old house. So if that is a deal breaker, then it's not for you. Jen, I would like a book for someone who likes The Other Bennett Sister and Kieran Millwood Hargrave's adult fiction. Maybe A Suspension of Mercy by Patricia Highsmith, which is a book about a writer who imagines what it would be like to kill his wife because he's not getting on with her very well. And then his wife disappears and the police think maybe he did it because they know he's written fiction about disposing of a body. I really enjoyed that one. And I'd also recommend A Woman in the Polar Night. I just feel vibes-wise it might be what you're looking for. It's a non-fiction book written in the 30s by a woman called Christiane Ritter who moved to the Arctic with her husband. And they had nothing. Their nearest neighbour was 60 miles away, and it's about her trying to survive in the Arctic wilderness. Jen, I need a book to calm my anxious brain. I am terrified of the next 4 years, so I'm sending hugs. I would recommend an anthology of poetry called She Will Soar, which I think is edited by Anna Sampson. I have a poem in that, which I actually wrote back in 2016, and I wish was not still relevant, but let me read it to you because it's really, really, really short. It is, hope in jars, it lines the shelves. We hug it close to warm ourselves. It's admirable to cling to hope. Protest, protect, go out and vote. And when, in the morning light, this hope of ours does not shine bright, we coax it back. We mourn, we fight. So this book is full of poems like that by various different writers, including that one by me. So maybe you would like that. If you would like escapist book that is cozy, then I would recommend the Garlic and Witch series, which I can't remember the author of now, but I'll insert the cover of the first one here. It is just really cozy and lovely. Jen, I need a gift for my dad. He loves the Christie Affair and the Dublin Railway Murders. Has he read the M.W. Craven Poe series? The first one is called The Puppet Show. It's set in the Lake District, and I read all of them last year. There's a new one that's come out and I'm waiting for the paperback release, but I think there are 5 out so far and I gobbled them up. Jen, I need a fiction book for my 7-year-old son who only likes to read non-fiction. Firstly, I would say reading non-fiction is great, and if that's what they enjoy and they would like more of, then I would recommend that. But if you're looking for them specifically to get into fiction for reasons, then 3 I would recommend are Bilal's Brilliant Bee by Michael Rosen, Planet Omar books by Zainab Mian, and Toad Attack by Patrice Lawrence. Those are all books for that age group that I've really enjoyed. Jen, my husband loved Piranesi. Something similar, a book I haven't read yet, but I feel like will be similar, again, going on vibes rather than specific subject matter, is Northwoods by Daniel Mason. But maybe also The Wall by Marlon Haushofer, which has that element of loneliness because it's about someone feeling like they're the only person in the world. And yeah, I haven't read that one either, but I've heard great things and look forward to reading it. Jen, I want a cozy, feel-good family drama set in the English countryside. Fortnight in September by R.C. Sheriff. Is it my favourite book of the year? I haven't decided yet, but it's definitely up there. It's about a family who go away for 2 weeks at the end of September, and it is the most wholesome thing. It will just put a big smile on your face. Jen, I need a book for my 11-year-old niece who has not enjoyed reading until recently. She really liked Josie Smith and the Christmasaurus. You gave me such flashbacks because I used to love Josie Smith as well, along with the Sophie books, which is Dick King-Smith, isn't it? I think they're probably a bit young for her now, but I love those as well as the Josie Smith ones. I would recommend When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit by Judith Carr because I think it's so readable and I read it for the first time when I was 10. Yeah, I would recommend that. Jen, a book for a dinosaur-obsessed 3-year-old. If I Had a Dinosaur by Gabby Dornay, illustrated by Alex Barrow. It comes in both board book and paperback, but also Dinosaurium, which is going to be too old for them, but brilliant to look at, and then they can learn from it over the years. I just think there's something about huge books for young kids that is pretty adorable. Jen, I need a book for my sister. She is in her 30s, a mum like sustainability, relatable millennial struggles. Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love by Huma Qureshi is a wonderful book about family relationships. It's a short story collection. One of the best short stories I've ever read is in that book. And then also At the Table by Claire Powell, which is a family drama, mainly told in instances of a family coming back together to eat. So time might pass between each of these gatherings, so you get to see snippets of their lives. Jen, I need a book for my mum who loves knitting. Island, strong female characters and mysteries. Foster by Claire Keegan, I think, is the perfect recommendation for this. A short novella about a young girl who's sent to stay on a farm because her family can't afford to have her stay because they're having another baby. That's probably a bit of an obvious recommendation though, so if she's already read that, then Antarctica by the same author. Jen, I need a book talking on pregnancy, motherhood, that captures the messy reality of it. The Republic of Motherhood by Liz Berry and also Claire Kilroy's Soldier Sailor. And then finally, this is number 50 something, Jen, I need a book that's a feminist dystopia. The Hierarchies by Ros Anderson, which is about a robot who lives in the attic of a house, and she was created or bought by the husband of the household. The wife knows that she is there, almost like a mistress, and it's about her seeking freedom out of this house and going out into the world. That is the one that I would recommend to you. Okay, so that's a lot of book recommendations for you. I hope that this was helpful. Let me know in a comment down below if you did find it helpful, and as I said, if you would like to throw $1 or £1 in the tip jar, that would be very kind of you. And thanks again to Serious Readers for sponsoring this video. If you have any other bookish gift conundrums, you can leave them in a comment down below and I'll try and respond to them if I can. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you all have a lovely December and I will see you very soon. Sending love. Bye.